Bobby Lashley is awesome. I mean, just look at the guy. Now, as we know, he can go in the ring, but even if he couldn't, when you look like a real-life superhero, sometimes in wrestling, I'm happy to sit back, put my hands on my hips in a weird way, and just appreciate you running wild and kicking people's asses. For some reason, though, back in 2018, somebody in WWE woke up and went, I think I'm going to try and ruin Bobby Lashley's career today. And yep, indeedy, they gave him one of the worst booking decisions ever. Sami Zayn was involved in this too, and as we know, he's a top-tier talent as well. And that's why both of them deserve a massive round of applause in 2024, because go and listen to the reactions that they are getting today. And this is because they're presented in their best light, and not in, well, whatever this was, like a child wrote it. In fact, that's an insult to a kid. Now, 6 years ago, Bobby Lashley had only recently returned to the company, whereas Sami Zayn was knee-deep in his bad guy run. So I can understand this. I get how we got here. You do have two guys. They need a feud. Put them together. It all began when Bobby Lashley sat down to do an interview with Renee Young, the now Renee Paquette, I suppose because we were trying to humanize him a bit more. So she asked him about his family. I suppose like most normal people would do, Bob started to tell us about his sisters. All right? Lots of people have siblings. We got some serious info too, because there was Kathy, there was Francis, and there was Jessica. And all of a sudden, Bob started to give us some really, really weird information. Because Kathy was attached to her mother's broom or something. Jess was all about using a towel as a security blanket, whereas Francis wouldn't go anywhere without their dad's army helmet. And Bobby also told a story about one time he had stolen that as a joke, and now look at this scar under my eye. That's what Francis did. So I was like, flub me, all the Lashleys are nuts. Young also must have been told to sell this like something was going on, because it was so uncomfortable, and therefore it was uncomfortable to watch. Given this wasn't Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, I don't think this is the vibe we were going for. Lashley then finished all this by saying that he loved his sisters very much when we got to Raw the following week, and Sami Zayn walked out and was like, ha, I know all of this is lies. Now, okay, let's pretend Bobby Lashley had made all of this up. He did a sit-down interview with Renee Young and decided, man, I need some more interesting fake facts here. I will tell a lie. Who cares? Why do I care if Bobby Lashley lied about sisters, but apparently it was the worst thing ever. Sami wouldn't let it lie though, so he did indeed say that 7 days later he would bring the sisters to Raw. I remember watching this, and do you know what I did? I audibly went, oh please, for the love of everything, no. This does indeed bring us to the 21st of May episode on Raw, and we should have known instantly it was going to be a disaster, because who walked out? It was 3 men dressed up like women. Yes, this is the decision that WWE made. Who the flub is it for? They had all the items that Bobby had mentioned in his interview too. But of course, dun dun dun, there was a secret reason behind all of them, and Sam had figured it out. For Kathy only carried around this broom to defend herself against Bobby Lashley. Francis only had the helmet because apparently Bob used to enjoy hitting her on the head, so she wore it as protection. Whereas Jessica had this towel to cry so much because Bobby Lashley was so mean. Straight away I was like, well, why didn't you just have a box of tissue? Now the interesting trivia part is that Francis was actually played by none other than today's Max Caster, so I'd love to know what he thought about all of this. And once again, let's just take the story as read. All right, Bobby Lashley was an asshole of an older brother, and his parents definitely should have been telling him off. But in terms of like some big scandal, it's like, no, not really. He was just a dickhead kid. There's loads of them. For some reason, Lashley waited in the back and allowed all of this to play out before he came to the ring going, ha 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 ha. When of course he attacked Sami Zayn, and then dun dun, all the sisters tried to attack him when Bob got every single one of these items and he used it as a weapon. Like, Lashley, this ain't doing nothing to protect your innocence. If you want to know as well, this only went 10 minutes, but I think in some parts of my brain, it's still going on because it just felt so damn long. I mean, it really was a pile. I think we're long enough into the video of shit. The crowd didn't care at all because of course they didn't. They were probably embarrassed to be there. And once again, the real joy of this is that Sami Zayn and Bobby Lashley are super duper stars today, meaning they were able to overcome this. And trust me, it would have ruined other people's careers. That's how rubbish it was. Saying that, Lashley also then had to go through all that lesbian stuff with Lana and Liv Morgan however long after this. Although he has talked about it in interviews, and he just goes, shrug emoji, that's called paying your dues. So he is just the nicest, most loveliest man ever. I don't know about you, but that's probably the version you want to portray on TV. It really does sound like he's the best guy as well, because Bob was asked about this during a Shaq wrestling interview a year or so ago, and here's what he had to say about all the other people involved. So I got it written down here, and he said, "For those guys, I mean, best of luck to them. They're awesome at the time, and I know they're doing well right now. I mean, they will have to do whatever it takes to try and make it." Including this baloney. What really annoys me is that years after this, Bobby Lashley went to Vince McMahon and he said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a story. Why don't I lose a bunch of matches? I then basically lose my will to be in shape. I get really fat. When someone has to come light a fire under my ass, I get back in shape, I do return, and I win a championship." And that got turned down by 3 people pretending to be his sisters, and Sami Zayn just jumped around. Well, that was totally fine. So look, I do like WWE, I like all promotions, but back then, sucked. Amazingly too, Bobby Lashley was successful in this feud where he pinned Sami Zayn, and his next challenger was Roman Reigns, and again, this was 2018, so WWE loved Roman Reigns. As they both said, "I think I should be the next #1 contender for the Universal title," and the other one disagreed, so they had a match, and flipping Bob won. Of course, there was then a big hoo-ha to find out who was actually going to face Brock Lesnar, and it was the Tribal Chief, or the future Tribal Chief. But man, talk about night and day. Bob had been in the myrrh, and now he's headed up to the sky again. I don't know what myrrh is. In September of that year as well, it was when Lio Rush was introduced as his manager. That's another thing that went totally awry. I actually think these two had quite good chemistry. Then after a while, Bobby Lashley had to flex his butt as Leo commentated on it. You know what? I'm done talking about WWE from 2018. I watched too much wrestling. Doubling back round as well, the thing that was never explained about this is what happened to Bobby Lashley's real sisters. Surely he should have been like, "Well, obviously these are a bunch of people that Sami Zayn hired to try and make fun of me, but now let me introduce you to my real family." But he never did that. And like all of the stories that I tell you on this worst booking series, WWE just dropped it and never talked about it again. So I don't want to sound like a broken record. I don't want to be Groundhog Day. This is why we should appreciate WWE much more in 2024. And that rhymes so you know it's true. Because even if a story is absolute pants, 9 times out of 10, it gets an ending. Whereas here, this almost doubled up with an unsolved mystery. Bob just let this happen and never try to right the wrong. And if you were Francis, Jessica, or Kathy, wouldn't you be like, "Hey Bob, the next time we're having dinner at Christmas time, you have just misrepresented us on television and we don't appreciate it." So maybe Bobby Lashley isn't a babyface at all. I had a quick look as well and I couldn't find any information what Sami Zayn thought about this. I'm just going to make it up. I want to make it very clear, this is me lying, this is me exaggerating, but I would guess he probably thinks it's one of the worst things he has ever been involved with, although fair play to that guy. He is the master of taking bad situations and making them work. Remember that Jackass match? No, I actually thought on paper that was a good idea, but nobody could have done it as well as Sami Zayn. He is the hero that keeps on giving. Also, just so you have all the information, I did do some research, and Jessica was actually played by independent wrestler Mr. Everything Victor Andrews. And as for the third sister, I couldn't find any details about that. Probably because they buried it, which is not a bad idea. Now, of course, please do make sure you click the video on the screen, which will be yet more WWE crappy booking. And again, this is another series that's never going to end. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And the most important thing you can do is let me know your memories, your thoughts, and maybe even your reactions to finding out about this story in the comments below. And I promise you, all of it is true. I haven't embellished it. In fact, I've probably been quite kind. Do not go and watch it. It's not worth your time. It is a waste of life. Goodbye.